Okay, and welcome back, students who are taking financial accounting. And this is the theory aspect of this first chapter, which is business accounting and you. And maybe I should have put chapter 1 here on the slide, but yeah, maybe I'll do it in the next video, okay? But I think the reason why I didn't do that is because even though I'm going to be covering the theory for chapter 1 in these theory videos, I also added here an introduction to cover additional concepts. So this introduction kind of like leads you in, will lead into the chapter 1 stuff. So this is stuff that you're not finding in the textbook, but it is important to be able to have you have a better understanding of the reasons why you're doing things, how to, what to expect, and how to think about quote-unquote financial accounting. So in the last video, we left off with bookkeeping and accounting. In this video, I'm going to try to cover memorization and understanding, and this last one, more than one way to present information, GAAP. Right? But let's talk about memorization and understanding. Right? And this is just a word of advice. I'm an accountant. I've already been through it. I already have the knowledge, and I've been doing it for a long time. You as a student, it's up to you to decide how you want to gain that knowledge. And again, from the last video, I see a lot of business managers and a lot of marketing people and other business curriculums say, why do I have to take financial accounting? It has nothing to do with me, blah, 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 blah. So what they end up doing is they feel like it's a burden to be taking this here subject. And so they end up taking shortcuts. Okay, like for the other day, I had someone call up and, they didn't read the chapter and they were trying to answer the questions on the test by looking up the answers in the textbook. Okay, and they didn't do any of the homework problems or anything. And, it was obvious that the student was, obviously going to fail. Okay, and the reason why is because financial accounting is not about memorization. It's about understanding concepts. And as you see here, I had put the learning is in the doing, right? If you have a subject like, let's just say, American history, okay, what you can do is, what ends up happening is, let's say chapter 1 was about the American Revolution, okay, and let's say chapter 2 is about the War of 1812, and then chapter 3 is about, say, the Civil War, okay? And this is, again, just an example, right? So what ends up happening is because this here is pretty much, as they go through chapter 1, as a student goes through chapter 1, it's really just memorization, all right? Because there are events that already happened, right? And so what students do is they read, memorize the information for the American Revolution. They take the test, okay, pass the test, and move on to the War of 1812, and they forget about the American Revolution. Why? Because now I'm going to study the War of 1812, and I'm going to take the test, pass the test, and move on to the Civil War, so I can forget about the War of 1812. Because why? When I'm reading a chapter on the Civil War, it has nothing to do with that information that doesn't cover the American Revolution or the War of 1812. Okay, that's American history or subjects like that. Psychology, is one that comes to my mind. But this is not how accounting works. Accounting is about understanding concepts and being able to apply the concepts to a particular situation. Okay. And the thing about understanding the concept is that when you have concepts in chapter 1, okay, and they equally apply when you move on to chapter 2, and they equally apply to chapter 3, and all the way, if you're on chapter 22, or you're in the next your next subject, which is a managerial accounting, okay, and those for taking in the accounting curriculum, that they carry over into intermediate accounting, okay, cost accounting, and so on and so forth. So what I'm getting at here is that everything builds one upon the other. And so when you're looking at it, if you don't understand those concepts as they build one upon the other, what ends up happening is let's say you're able to get on a test 100, okay? And let's say you only get, you score 80% because 20% you had gotten wrong, okay? Well, now in the next test, for the next, for whatever it is, you still have the opportunity to score 100%. But the problem is you don't have 100% of the information, the knowledge from the previous chapter. You only have 80%. So when you're working into this, when you're going into this next test, if you come across a question that pertains to the 20% you did not learn, all right, and didn't carry forward, well, now you're not starting at 100%, you're only starting at 80% because you don't have the 20% of the information that you missed. So you're at 80%, and let's say you score 80% of that, well, now you've got a 65, okay, and now you're short 35% of the information unless you go back and you learn it, because remember, this is cumulative. So what ends up happening is the students find, and I see it all the time, they skip the graded project, then they do the lesson 2 exam, they do the lesson 3 exam, they do the lesson 4 exam, and all the time their grade is getting less and less and less. And then they take the final exam and they fail it. Okay. Now, because their grades are getting less and less and less, and they end up failing the final exam, they come back to the graded project and they're trying to do the project, and they don't even remember what it's about, and so therefore they struggle with the graded project, and most oftentimes they fail it. And if they fail it, okay, or they don't score high enough, I should say, they end up failing financial accounting, and then they have to retake the entire subject again. And of course, if you retake the subject again, you have something to build upon. I mean, because you had already taken it once, and so usually on the retake, they manage to be able to pass the financial accounting. Well, what I'm trying to point out here is that don't, and it's a word of advice, you're the student, you're the one who has to decide what you're going to do, okay? But to me, it's kind of like, why spend the money, why spend the time when I have to do it twice, okay? When I could have done it the right way the first time. And the right way is not about reading a chapter and comprehending it. There's a big difference between comprehension and understanding, okay? Comprehension is being able to read what's on the page and know what it is, but it's an entirely different thing to be able to understand it and actually use or apply that information. With the American history, yeah, I can comprehend the English, I can comprehend, the Boston Tea Party and what that was all about, but I don't have to apply it, okay? A better question to make the sort of a distinction is, let's say you took the test on the American Revolution, and then the War of 1812, and then the Civil War, right? But in the Civil War, maybe the question asks, how did the economics of the American Revolution affect the Civil War? Now that kind of question calls into play understanding, because you have to apply the knowledge to be able to answer that question, okay? Comprehension is what day, what year did the Boston Tea Party occur? Okay, that's something you can just go and look up in the book. With financial accounting, you're not going to memorize definitions. Okay, if you happen to get a question, one that is deemed an easy question, where You have to provide the definition. You can always go and look that up in the book. Don't waste your time memorizing, okay? You're better off understanding the concepts, but the issue behind understanding the concepts is that you actually have to do the work in order to be able to understand the concept. Meaning, the textbook will give you, definitions. It will give you concepts, and it'll give you examples of those concepts. Okay, but the concepts have many, many pieces, right? Have many different pieces, and you have to be able to understand the entire concept and all of the different pieces. And so the example that it gives might include this piece, this piece, this piece, and this piece. Okay, there's no way that you can have an example in a textbook for every possible situation that ever occurred in the past, is occurring now, or is it going to occur in the future for each and every type of business throughout the entire globe. Impossible. Okay, it's better to present the concept and present an example or two that relates to that concept to see how the concept works. If you're reading through the chapter and you understand how that example works as far as that concept is concerned, that's only half of it, because remember I had said understanding and application. You have to be able to apply that understanding, and the only way you can pick up that application is by doing it. The learning is in the doing. You have to do the homework problems. And the reason why you have to do the homework problems is because even though you have these examples in the textbook, well, that's for that specific situation. When you're doing the homework problems, you're going to have additional situations, that were not part of the example. So to give a quick example here, and I realize that you haven't learned this, but when we talk about something like depreciation of an asset, okay, and this is just a quick example, one of the key concepts is salvage value. Okay. Well, the textbook will talk about salvage value, and they'll give an example, and let's say the salvage value is, on the asset is $1,000. Okay, well, it'll present that. But what will happen is then you'll get a problem, and the salvage value will be 0. Well, you didn't have an example where the salvage value was 0. Okay, and what some students will do is they'll go and they'll try to look at the example and try to mimic the example exactly step by step. So this portion over here of salvage value, right, was not covered adequately by the examples, all right, even though salvage value was part of the concept which is presented in the textbook. Okay, but you can't have examples to cover every possible situation. So you're given a new situation, and you need to be able to adapt that concept, apply that understanding of that concept to the new situation, and that you can only get by doing. So doing the homework problems, you're giving more and more situations, applying these concepts, and you become more comfortable with them, so that when you go to do the test, you can, you have a better idea as to how to go about solving that particular situation. Okay, if you don't do the homework problems, what ends up happening is sure, you read the chapter, you think you understand it, but when it comes time for you to do the homework, now all of a sudden, when it comes time for you to do the test, if you haven't done the homework, you're going to try to follow the example in the book. And I hear it all the time. Well, it's not what's in the book. Well, yeah, okay. You're not going to find the answers word for word in the book, right? That's not going to happen, right? And you're not going to find an example that's exactly the same as the test problem. So if you're trying to do it, exactly the same as the example in the book, obviously you're going to get it wrong. Okay, but by doing the homework problems, you develop the skill set, and that's what it is a development of a skill set. in order to be able to know what to do in new situations and know whether you're right or not. Okay, so that's memorization and understanding. Now, lastly here for this introduction, I want to talk about more than one way to present information, and it's GAAP, the gap. Gap is generally accepted accounting principles. Okay, now these are principles, okay, and you can have a let's say an automotive dealership on one side of a street, and you can have another automobile dealership on the other side of the street. Okay, and if you look at their financial statements, the information, all right, when you look at A, can look very different from B, but they both follow the generally accepted accounting principles, all right? And again, we're into this understanding concepts and being able to apply it, right? You know, the information is presented differently. Another point to make, and you'll see this on the student community, you'll see there's at the very top, there's a ton of blank forms. You're more than welcome to use the blank forms, okay, for, you know, doing your homework and stuff like that. But, you know, you use different forms for different applications. For example, there's a 2-column form, a 3-column form, and a 4-column form, okay? You know, you might have to create a financial statement, and really, you know, let's say you're creating a trial balance. And I know you don't know what that is just yet, but on the trial balance, you're going to have a column for a date, a column for a description, then you're going to have a column for debits, and you're going to have a column for credits. Okay. Now, this is, you know, this would be, if you have just these 2 columns here, this is considered a 2-column form, okay, because you're putting the information in these 2 columns. But you could just as easily have used a 4-column form, meaning here's the date, here's the description, here's column 1, column 2, column 3, and column 4, right? And what you could have done is you could have taken column 3 here and column 4 and made that your debit and your credit. Okay. The reason why I'm going into this is because there's more than one way to present the information, and it doesn't matter about the lines on the paper. You know, whether I'm creating a trial balance, a journal entry, an income statement, or whatever, I can actually use blank copy paper as long as the formatting of the information on the page is correct. Okay, so the lines become irrelevant. If all I have is a 4-column paper, blank form, and I need only a 2-column, I could use the 4-column and just use 2 of the columns. I don't care about these other lines. Conversely, if all I have is a 2-column page, right, my date, my description, and I have column 1 and column 2, right, but I need 4 columns, well, fine, I just create a couple extra columns, so I end up with columns 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, you know, I can adapt the paper in any way, shape, or form. So, and the reason why I included this in this introduction is because a lot of students get hung up on that. You know, they think they have to have the exact paper, the exact formatting on the paper. No, it's how the information is presented that's important. And it really is not so, you know, the lines on the paper help you to, you know, keep things in an orderly fashion, and that's what they're used for, okay? But the formatting, you know, of financial statements and things like that is important. And as long as you include all the correct information, you know, in the correct formatting, you're good to go regardless of the lines on the page. Okay. All right. So with that said, I'm kind of like done here with the introduction. This being, some additional thoughts about financial accounting and that type of thing. And I'm not going to go back and summarize what I covered on, in these last 3 videos. Okay. The next video, I'm actually going to go through a series of slides covering the process or the workflow of accounting. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because if you see the process and see the workflow, that's going to begin to build the compartments in your mind as to how to put the information and how they flow from one to the next, so that when we're into chapter 1, you'll already be somewhat familiar with what's going on, and it'll make learning a little bit easier. So in the next video, I will then pick up doing that process of covering the process and the workflow. Okay, so I will see you in that next video.